Good day to each and every one of you. This is Pastor Robert Lockhart, and this is
Minister Rochelle Lockhart.
It's so good for us to be with you, and welcome once again to Tough Questions,
Real Answers.
Real Answers. We've not been with you for a while, but today, so good to be back with you. And Rochelle, tell us, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, you know, there's been a lot of situations so far in our media about abuse on women.
Okay.
In relationships, domestic violence. Why do you think that that's on such a higher level now today than we've seen before?
You know, when we think about it, we had the situation with the gentleman who was in Bimini, was beating his girlfriend in the street, and then we had the situation with the gentleman who overran his fiancée in the car in Nassau. And then we just had the situation where the gentleman shoots his 21-year-old fiancée and then shoots himself. And so we've seen these situations, which are not new, but because now of cameras, if something happens and people are present, they pull out their phones and they take the pictures of them. And so now we're seeing them face up instead of just hearing about them. And so it's really showing you what has been present in our society for a long time, but now they're becoming even more shocking because we're able to see them happening in real time and see the viciousness of them. The first two didn't end in death, but of course, the first one, we saw a lady being beat in the street. The second one, gentleman overran his fiancée with a car, or may have been his wife, and she ended up in hospital. She survived, and then of course this one ended in death. But these things are present in our community, and they've been so for a long time. And so, you know, these aren't anything new, but of course, I think we're being more sensitized to the fact that definitely as a community and as a people, we do need to pay attention to the way that women are being treated in our society, and the pain that it causes both to those women and to their families.
So do you think being locked up in the COVID environment has caused a lot of that anger to spill over into our relationships, or?
I don't think so, you know. I think if anything, being the lockdowns during COVID, what it does is pushes it to the surface. Because when people are forced to live in closer proximity to one another than they normally did for longer periods of time, then if there are issues that are there that haven't been dealt with, then they're almost forced to the surface. But you know, all of these incidents pretty much took place after the curfew, after the lockdown. So I don't contribute or attribute any of the COVID lockdowns to those, because I think they just pushed to the surface things that have already existed.
So how is it that love can turn to so much anger and hate? It's like, and the thing about it is, these are young people.
Yeah. I think first of all is when people don't understand what love is. You know, inside the book of Corinthians chapter 13, it tells us how love behaves itself. And so a lot of times it's people that have what you call emotional love. You know, sometimes there's something that you call a hate-love relationship. It's when people feel that they love someone and or may sincerely love someone, but they don't really know how to love or how to allow love to have its perfect work. And so there's aspects of love that we do have to learn. That's what the Bible tells us, that you know, he says that wives need to be taught how to love their husbands, and the same thing, husbands need to be taught how to love their wives. And many times we live in a society where there are persons that haven't been taught how to deal with conflict, and conflicts will take place in a relationship, and how to deal with conflict, how to deal with anger, how to deal with rejection, because all of these are the things that are coming to the surface. How to deal with being hurt when you've been hurt by someone that you love, and not take these extreme steps of wanting to inflict pain to the point that we're now violating the rights of another person in the name of loving them or being hurt by someone that we love. And so these shows the flaws in the person's own personality and way of thinking, and not having a healthy way of dealing with pain, rejection, disappointment, all of these things that can take place in all of our lives from time to time when you have relationships, especially when it's a girlfriend-boyfriend relationship. And I think people need to understand what that relationship is all about also.
When I was growing up, there were some things that my mom told me, and she always stressed, don't go with a young man that's angry and that who will beat you or hit you. Do you think that mothers today are teaching their daughters qualities or characteristics they should be looking for in these relationships? Because I'm like, if you're 21 and you're already being abused in a relationship and you're going to still turn around and get engaged to that person and then have a child with that person, if you're starting off with abuse, there is no way you could even think that you're not going to be abused anymore when you marry this person. So is that component in the mother-daughter relationship, do you think that's absent?
Well, there's a couple of things I'm going to say to that. First of all, abuse is a complicated situation. Sometimes it's an interaction that takes place between the abuser and the person being abused. And then when you're in love with somebody that's abusive, a lot of times there's a lot of manipulation that's taking place, a lot of mind games, then there's emotions involved. And so there's a couple of things. First of all, I think it's very important that exemplary relationships are played out before our children. And sometimes what happens a lot of times is that we have young men and young women who do not have a good picture of what good relationships look like. But let's talk from the girls' side. I think girls need to be encouraged and need to be helped to know how to recognize a good man. A good man is more than just somebody that spends money on you, that provides for you, because sometimes that ends up really being a trap. Because sometimes you can get caught in with a guy that thinks that because I've given you money or because I'm taking care of you, you're now my property and you owe me, and don't ever think about leaving me.
Well, that's another point that I thought about too. When we were dating, my mom had already told me, never take money from a guy. And so I remember one time when I was in college, you had offered to do something for me, and I said to you, no, I don't want you to spend any money on me. But I know of situations where mothers encourage daughters to take money from these guys, and that is just so dangerous. So that goes against what used to happen back in the day when I was growing up, which wasn't too long, but it seemed like it's so long because things is just happening so fast. But how would you advise mothers now? Because I don't think women today understand that when a young man gives a young lady money off, he takes her out and buys her food and buys clothes and all of these things. Even our sons, I already told my sons not to take anything from girls, because girls could go psycho as well. All that stuff I bought for you, and that's, and so I think it's a lot of time in the relationship that you could spend money on the person that you say that you love. But when there's so much vested,
it's how you do it and what you're doing. I think because there's so much things that we could talk about on this matter. We might end up in a part 2.